Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Christy Barber with Christy Barber Consulting, and I have two friends today from SolutionsX who I've worked with on a handful of different projects when it comes to implementing Infor. They are a great SI team and predominantly help a lot of my clients that have been in the small, medium-sized business space. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. David, I'll let
Sure.
you go first.
I don't remember who you said, but I'm David Trout. I'm the president and CEO of SolutionsX.
And my name is Robert Moratti. I'm a senior account manager at SolutionsX.
Awesome. So I guess my quick question for you guys, just so everybody gets to know who you are, is if you can just give a quick overview of SolutionsX, who you are, how you guys got started, how long you've been in the space.
Sure. So SolutionsX is an Infor Gold channel partner. We specialize in the sale and implementation of technology solutions from within the Infor Cloud Suite industrial product line. So our journey began back in 2009, I think, and I joined shortly thereafter. Many of us came from manufacturing backgrounds and were hands-on users of Sightline, and now it's called Infor Cloud Suite Industrial, of course. I started as a business consultant here and implementation lead for ERP projects, and eventually became the VP of Professional Services. And as of Q4 of 2019, I took over as president of the company. So we love our relationship with Infor. We've been honored with the Infor Growth Partner of the Year Award, both in 2022 and 2024. And our reputation is built on successful implementations primarily. So whether we sell the software ourselves or support implementations from other partners, we also assist with Infor direct accounts as well.
Awesome. And when you're running what you do a lot of people find you through Infor? They're finding your company directly and then having you help sell the Infor solution that's best for them?
I would say usually they find us through Infor. When people are searching for ERP, they're going to find the big ones, right? They're going to find the Infors of the world. They're not going to find necessarily the SolutionsX's of the world. We don't have enough money to compete for that SEO against $4.4 billion ERP companies,
Right. So yeah, that's awesome. Another thing that I'm kind of just wondering is, why is Infor Cloud Suite Industrial a good fit for the SMB market? What have you seen that, hey, there's the competitive edge? It's people moving off of QuickBooks, or there's people that are on smaller solutions, or even a really old AS400 solution. How have you kind of seen that your software really helps those small, medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, so Infor Cloud Suite Industrial is particularly well suited to SMB manufacturers. So the ERP system was purpose-built for manufacturing with all the essential features integrated into the core product. And these capabilities are included in the base Cloud Suite subscription, offering an all-in-one solution without hidden costs. One of the things we always walk in and talk to companies about is, hey, you are a manufacturing company, and typically we see 85% of your company's needs in regarding an ERP system are going to be met with out-of-the-box functionality. That other 10 to 15%, usually the 15%, 10 of it is usually just an extension or a quick modification that SolutionsX would make to make that out-of-the-box software work for you. And then there's always that one small 5% chance of us going to get a third-party product and bolting it on. Typically, lately, I should say, we've been seeing more of just a 90-10, where 90% of SMB manufacturers' needs are being met with out-of-the-box functionality, and that 10% is really just us extending the out-of-the-box software to make it work for them. So additionally, CSI supports rapid adoption through pre-configured business processes delivered via process intelligence, which helps manufacturers get up and running more efficiently and maybe even quicker.
And I think something that's unique about you guys, of what I've seen, is you've developed a lot of your own intellectual property as well that then helps these clients that you're looking at. And so instead of bringing a traditional third-party solution, you guys have resources you've built. And I guess kind of what led to building some of those? Is it because you don't want your clients going to a third-party solution, and this way it's things that you've made, it works with your solution well, and it's things that the client needs? I know a big one is with bringing in some of the parcel and the pricing around that. It's bringing stuff in with, CAD link and all of those. I don't know if you want to just speak to that really quick.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that. So we focus in three levels, essentially, of intellectual property, if you will. One of the lowest level is content creation. So the tool set that Infor provides inside of the Cloud Suite is extremely robust, and you can do all kinds of really cool and helpful things with the tool set, from workflows and getting alerts for important things. And so if you create a group of content around personas, as an example, these are the things that are important to a buyer inside an organization or something like that. So we have these little content packs that have the content all bundled up for folks. And we also create some industry specific solutions, as you indicated. Like, we have Armor X that's designed to meet ATF compliance in the firearms industry. We do quite a bit in the aerospace and defense world. Defense world can also include firearms, of course. Another industry specific solution really is around anybody that has international and that they have multi-currency requirements. We created a industry specific solution called RateX that automates currency exchange rate updates and things like that. And then on the larger scale of things for large projects, we have actually developed CAD Talk. So it was developed by our co-founder, Scott Brickler, who has grown, and that business has grown into its own thriving company. So we're always on the lookout for the next big innovation. So if anybody out there has any ideas, we're open to exploring them. Let us know.
Yeah, and I think CAD Talk is such a great part, because most people use, SolidWorks or CAD in general, and then it's bringing in that data so that they're not having to live in the ERP. You're keeping engineering kind of separate, where they live and thrive outside of the ERP, is what I always say. It's like, I trust you enough to maybe have some managers that can be in it, but it's better that I found that using an integration like what you have sets a client up to be, even more successful.
Yeah, Christy, for sure. I mean, design engineers, they spend their day in CAD. I know this. I was one. So we sit in CAD and we design how this thing should look when it's all done. But then it takes manufacturing engineers to figure out exactly how I'm going to run that bill of manufacturing through the shop floor. We don't want design engineers, bothering with that kind of stuff. The manufacturing engineers and the production folks, they know best about the router, how I'm going to put it, where do I want to configure sub-assemblies and that kind of stuff. And so CAD Talk absolutely streamlines that process for anybody that's in a thing. And then also it's probably worth mentioning too that you don't need a full ERP license to be able to operate CAD Talk with the integration as well. So you can actually reduce your number of username licenses for the ERP by using it.
Perfect. And I think too, of when you look at CSI can scale, and it is a solution that can start out small. It can grow with clients over time. Where do you see that it is most successful size-wise with the clients that you work with?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And as you indicated, it is highly scalable. So we've supported organizations ranging from 10 to over 1,000 users. And whether a company uses basic order to cash functionality with 10 people, or embraces the full suite that comes right out of the box, including CRM and quoting, advanced planning and scheduling, forecasting, all of that kind of stuff, and everything in between. So you ask kind of where's a sweet spot, that's really hard to say. I think, we have very successful companies that are smaller, 10 user, $10 million a year companies, and $500 million a year companies with over 1,000 users, and they're all being very successful. So I don't know if we're looking for a sweet spot. Let's go right in the middle, 500. Yeah. 500 and 250 million. But with the fact that Cloud Suite Industrial includes just everything you need, from CRM all the way through some of the more advanced stuff like sales and operations planning, as well as the platform. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's a fantastic product for all sizes of companies in the SMB space.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, I know personally, clients get hung up on, well, we're this size of a revenue. Is the solution going to work for us? And I think a lot of it comes down to the user base, as well as how many users do you have? Does it make sense for, your users to be in this? Are you a global company? Are you, how many different countries are pulling in, or locations? What can you speak to on that for clients that are kind of hung up on, I don't know if I'm the right fit for your solution because hey, we're maybe our revenue is 700 million a year, but we only have, I don't know, 55 users because it's something, they have so many great systems, but something like that. I think there isn't necessarily probably a right answer, but just being able to, educate people a little bit more on that.
Sure. So I think, I'll start, and then Robert, maybe you can, finish it up for us. But I think the best way to think about it, as you kind of alluded to, Christy, is that it's the number of users utilizing the software and the number of business processes that need to be flowed through the ERP or the technology solution in general. So we see a lot of companies that are reducing the number of actual ERP users while the throughput of what the company does, the manufacturing piece, the domestic product, if you will, is either expensive or, it's high volume. And so you can crank out a lot of dollar signs, through the manufacturing plant with less hands-on, personal users in the system. We have a lot of companies utilizing RPA, robotic process automation, to help to streamline some of the processes. And so we're seeing user counts actually go down while revenue numbers for generated product going up. So I would think that we need to start disconnecting a little bit from what we think about in our total revenue for a company, especially a global company, because each one of these, Cloud Suite Industrial is fully multi-site capable and multi-currency capable. So you could have one global company that's operating 10, 12, 14, 18 different sites. And each of those sites, well, they don't all have 1,000 people, right? And they don't all do 500 million. Maybe they're a $500 million global company, but each one of their sites is only doing 80 to 150 or something like that. And while we could absolutely handle the $500 million one all in one site, I'm just utilizing that as an example to help possibly the prospects disconnect a little bit from size of my organization to, am I going to be forced to go into something like SAP or,
the dreaded 3 letters that everybody hates, right? Yeah.
Except SAP, they don't hate those 3 letters, I guess.
Right. They like it. But how many times I go to a client and meet with them and they're like, whatever you do, we will not look at SAP. And it's like, okay, you've had a poor experience. Got it.
Yeah. Some of those horror stories are prolific, for sure.
Yeah, they are, unfortunately. So I don't know, Rob, if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think David hit it perfectly.
Perfect.
No. Yep.
Wait a minute. I said enough that the sales guide is not going to add anything. All right.
Give it time. Give it time.
So I guess looking at your solution, what industries do you find that CSI works the best with?
So SolutionsX focuses on 3 core verticals within manufacturing. One being industrial equipment, next being aerospace and defense, including arms manufacturing. And then I would say process manufacturing with an emphasis on plastics and chemicals. But as far as a larger scale, I mean, we have folks who don't do any manufacturing. We have folks that trade currency that can use Cloud Suite Industrial. So it's a product that's pretty robust and pretty flexible. So if you're looking for just SolutionsX and what we bring to the table with 300 combined years of experience in the manufacturing space with our consultants and implementation team, I would say those 3 that I mentioned. Is there other ones that we can excel in? Absolutely. But those are the 3 main ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christy, I think about it. Yeah. I'm sorry. I think about it, it's where we kind of cut our teeth. So industrial equipment manufacturing is where the founders came from. It's where I came from. A lot of our core team came from that space. Aerospace and defense is important to us, because we are a veteran-owned company, and really love to concentrate on the defense side of things. And then process manufacturing came in because we actually we assisted in the creation of that module for Cloud Suite Industrial. So the solution, when we say module, if you will, Cloud Suite Industrial does not actually sell modularly like some of the other ERPs do, but there are areas inside of the Cloud Suite, specifically areas inside of the ERP as well. Process manufacturing being one of those areas was added later And we actually assisted on the creation of that so that we made sure that the DNA stayed the same in the ERP application. So we quickly became experts on process manufacturing as well. So we concentrate on those in an outbound marketing type of way. But if you're a manufacturing company looking for a great manufacturing software in the SMB space, Cloud Suite Industrial should absolutely be in your list of things you're looking at.
And I think something you guys have done well, just from the CSI perspective, is when it comes to aerospace and defense, being able to have all those extra security parameters in place so that those clients know that, hey, their data is secure. They're on a special type of cloud that is particular to Gov. It is,
Sure.
NIST compliance. You have all the fun acronyms that kind of come with it. And I know that a lot of times that narrows it down pretty quickly of which players can even come into that space. There's more that are starting to come in, but I think over the last 5 years, as I've worked with a lot of A&D, it's usually you guys and then maybe two others that come into that space because of the complexities that Infor as a whole has built for it.
Yeah, and I guess the list gets even smaller. Sorry, Rob. If you're looking at a multi-tenant cloud solution, if you're looking for the benefits of a multi-tenant solution and the ability to comply with all of those government regulations and things, the list gets very small at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and David kind of hit the nail on the head there. Most of the opportunities I've been working lately when it comes to aerospace and defense, top priority is compliance. And the customer will flat out say this list of vendors is very small because we need that they actually say it themselves, we need that out of the box functionality just to be compliant. Like, we don't want to worry about bolting it on or you selling a software and then going to a hosting company who can specialize in hosting Gov type stuff. We don't want to do that. We want one vendor, one solution that handles everything. And being the fact that Infor is on the FedRAMP marketplace as an approved vendor, that carries a lot of weight in itself.
Yeah. And I think too, to even one other part to add to that also is all of the things that go in with the A&D, you have to be so careful about who's coming into the implementation. And with a team like yours, everybody is USA based. They're ready and being able to work in that space where other vendors don't have that flexibility because they outsource a lot, and then you can't have that.
Yeah, that's right. Not only SolutionsX, but Infor as well. If you go with their Gov Cloud solution, that's a different support team, and that whole entire support team is also based in the US.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one other thing is when you're looking at the CSI, how flexible is the solution? And if you're starting out that maybe you're little manufacturing and now you're really growing where you need a full PLM, you need all these added modules we'll say, to come in because you're buying the whole solution, but maybe not utilizing the whole thing. How does that look when a client comes in and it's, we're using really a lot of the out of the box, but they know they're going to scale and grow and their growth plan is over the next 3 to 5 years. What does that look like, and how does your team come in and help them scale and bring in additional intellectual property items that you guys have developed that will work for them?
So a couple of different things. There's a lot to unpack in that question, Christy. That one was loaded.
I a really long one.
That's all right. So let's start with flexibility of the solution. So Cloud Suite Industrial is extremely flexible. And we talked a little bit about that when we spoke of scalability and the fact that the number of users can grow fairly simply. If you start out with 50 users and then all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, we're going to double our revenue. We're going to double the number of people that we need. What do you have to do? You just call Rob and he'll sell you some more licenses. You assign them to people and, you get them trained up pretty quick. One of the things that happens in our implementation methodology is the documentation of the business processes, the new target business processes through the implementation. So it's really easy to bring new employees up to speed. So scalability there, flexibility of the system. We talked about areas of the ERP and areas of the cloud suite. And we talked about some fun things like S&OP, sales and operations planning, or fiscal budgeting, or advanced planning and scheduling versus just utilizing MRP and somebody out expediting things. And so we kind of approach a lot of these ERP implementations. We evaluate each one at the beginning to decide what our exact approach will be. And we can take a crawl, walk, run type of approach through an implementation so that you don't have to do everything that you purchased immediately, right? Because it's included already. We don't even think about it that way, actually. What we really say is that you just get access to the cloud suite for this much money per month per user. And what you use of it is going to be determined by how, first of all, how the word I'm looking for is escaping me, but how robust you want it to be. That wasn't the word either, just so you know. But how mature you are in your business processes, how in things. So somebody that might be, you mentioned QuickBooks earlier, somebody coming from QuickBooks that never did inventory tracking before, we're probably not going to go all the way through advanced planning and scheduling with, finite scheduling on resources and resource groups out on the factory floor. There's going to be some interim steps before we get there, right? The other thing about flexibility of the solution, we hear a lot of times where people like to put manufacturing solutions or ERPs into pigeonholes that say, well, are you a make to order, or are you an engineer to order, or are you make to stock? And what we found is that most manufacturers operate in a blend of these modes, and CSI accommodates this hybrid approach naturally. It's just, it offers unmatched flexibility in that area. So people who say they're engineered to order, they probably do have a base model that somebody could order. So that makes them make to order also. And if they do have base models that they then allow people to configure or engineer, they probably also have things that they make in bulk so that they can save money. And so they're kind of make to stock too, right? And so you need a solution that does all of those. Cloud Suite Industrial does that. Hopefully I unpacked that question well enough.
The longest question ever. Yes, you did.
Okay. Awesome. I feel like Vivek Ramaswamy there. You just keep going.
Right? And I think too, that's a big part of it, even for you, Rob, when you're doing the sales side of things, is really talking through what that methodology looks like. Being able to tour their facilities, walk the floor, and get an understanding of, hey, how are you calculating inventory today? Oh, you're not. Okay. Then I know. And, when you're putting everything together, how that should look.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time learning their business. It starts with the tours, and then we spend a day, sometimes 2 days, just sitting down with department heads and leadership and aligning with them on what is your business today? Where do you want your business to go? And how can this ERP help you get there? And that's usually a deep conversation. Sometimes it gets heated because you have a lot of people talking about, well, I wanted to do this, and I want to do this, but then usually leadership will step in and just be like, okay, relax. Let's stay on track here. But then, that's what gives us our ammo to come back and do a demo. And show these folks exactly how it is that Cloud Suite Industrial is going to change your business.
And I think that's one of the very positive experience I've had with you guys too, is working with a client last year. And I think you guys spent a day and a half just, we were walking the floor. We're really diving in deep to here's what their requirements are. Here's what they want to look like in the future. And what do they need today versus what they need in a phase 2 or phase 3. And now they're about 3 months away from going live, and all of that work that was done up front has helped the process, be a lot more smoother and stay on time, versus sometimes other vendors or even other consultants come in and they don't allow vendors to get that in-depth knowledge that they really need to have a successful project.
You hit the nail on the head with that last sentence. Sometimes we're not as lucky to work with folks like Christy all the time. And sometimes we do feel like the consulting firm, if the company's using one, can get in the way from us learning more and more about the customer. But, if there's anything to take from this, if you're a consultant out there listening, just know that we're trying to do what's in best interest of the customer, your customer, and hopefully one day ours. and us gathering all this information and asking more questions and letting us run our typical process, it's going to make both of us look like rock stars. I promise. It's not going to make us look dumb. It's going to make us look like rock stars.
And that's what we need. Everybody needs to look successful.
Right.
And it's one of those, you don't want a failed implementation, and that happens a lot. How many times I get phone calls, you probably get phone calls of, hey, we were working with somebody else, we're on a totally different solution, and it's been a terrible experience, and we have to change.
Yeah. I've unfortunately
too frequently.
Exactly. Yeah. So it kind of brings one of the questions we had popped up, and this kind of leads into where I want to go next, is what does a typical implementation timeline for a small business ERP look like?
You want to take that one, Rob? Or you want me to do it?
Well, we can both answer it. I'll start. Right. Kind of a trick question there, right? Because first I'll go over our implementation approach, and I'll say what we see out in the field. So we utilize a very tailored version of the Infor deployment method, which ensures projects progress through defined stages and milestones. So we focus on understanding the client's business requirements, which we all just talked about, and aligning them with CSI's out-of-the-box processes. And then when unique needs arise, we leverage Infor's extensibility tools to address them. And there hasn't been a requirement we couldn't accommodate. So when we sit down with a company and we're going over our implementation methodology and how it looks, we tell them this is a partnership, right? We need to align. We all need to be on the same page. There's a team that needs to be assigned on your end. We have our team. We have the project manager. We have the lead consultant. Sometimes if it's a big enough project, there might be a second consultant. We have our CSM, myself, our solution consultant. Everybody's involved, and we do tell people, if you want to run fast, we can, but it's really on the customer, and making sure they understand here's what you can expect in an ERP implementation. So to answer the question, if you're looking for a number, I don't know if I'd ever tell anybody less than 9 months. I'm never going to tell anyone less than that. I think David would kill me if I said that.
I'm not going to tell you, but I am going to expand on it just a little bit. So a lot of it depends on needs. As Rob said, that it's up to the customer, really. And so it's not on the customer necessarily. We would, of course, go through it together, but it's definitely up to the customer. So depending on what kind of scope that you're looking for, we have taken a company live on Cloud Suite Industrial in 7 weeks. Now, the customer didn't get to make very many decisions throughout that process. We did our discovery. We determined how the system needed to be set up. We set it up and said, here's how you use it 7 weeks later, right? It's kind of, there's that. And then there's the ones that do take, even though it's a small company, a lot of times in smaller companies, the people that are making decisions wear multiple hats. So it really has to do with how much time you as a company, sorry, not you, Christy, but you, the person who asked the question, it's really how much time the company has to commit to the process. As Rob says, we can put more people on it. We can have people talking finance in conference room A and people talking operations in conference room B, and we can lock up your team for 4 weeks in a row, and we can really sprint and go fast. What we find though in small businesses, usually that's too much for them to swallow, right? Drinking from the fire hose for 4 or 5 weeks at a time, then their regular business doesn't get done. So I would say a small business who was right for Sightline Cloud Suite Industrial, I would say 6 to 8 months. You start getting in the medium business, then you're like a minimum of 9 months, because there's a lot of business processes that need to be gone through. And then it really just depends on how much time. If you actually have the ability in your company to set a dedicated team to perform the implementation, it can absolutely be done more quickly than typical.
And I actually saw that a couple of years ago. I had a client, they had moved off a Rootstock to Sightline, and they were probably the smartest group of people I've ever seen. They did a full implementation in 6 months with an Infor team, but because they knew how to set everything up, that was kind of all of their background, and I think the guy, as soon as they got provision for licenses, he's like, oh, I just went in and set up everybody, everything they need. And
Yeah.
the SI was like, oh, okay, well, we didn't need to do that, but that's great. We're ahead of the game. And so I think
Perfect.
that probably kind of helps with some of the wins for your guys' team when you're doing an implementation versus what are some of those challenges that pop up. And I know one being, hey, people can't manage time as well because it is a smaller company. They're having to do their day-to-day and wear the hat of getting this implementation going and being able to test it and, put data points in there, all of that. What have you guys seen as being some of the challenges for your team when it comes to, getting through an implementation, staying on time and not having any surprises pop up along the way?
Well, first of all, so I'll answer the question backwards. To not have any surprises pop up is you're really making sure that you have the right team members in place. So the people that know the business process or the business requirements, right? We're going to help you with the business processes, but the people that actually know the business requirements are important to be a part of the team. A lot of times I'll throw somebody under the bus. It's not by name, but a lot of times the COO is involved. And says, yeah, I pretty much know all of the processes for the supply chain. So I'm just going to handle everything for the purchasing manager and everything for receiving and everything for inventory control. I'm just going to handle that. And then we get through the first conference room pilot and you find out, well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Well, we didn't have the right person on the team, right? There was actually somebody out on the factory floor or in middle management that actually does know everything from tip to stern for that process and probably should have been the right team member. So first of all, I would say make sure you have the right team members, and then the common challenge of not having all of the answers and getting surprised at the end you don't get. But a lot of times we see that ensuring that proper documentation and testing of the new processes is where you really want to concentrate to overcome the challenges of a struggling implementation. So you get through this thing we call modeling to say, hey, here's your business requirement. I get it. Here's the process for how the out-of-the-box functionality in Cloud Suite Industrial handles that business requirement. Will that work for you? Yes. Okay, well, let's document exactly how that goes. As Rob indicated earlier, Infor's done a lot of that work for us already. There are the common and core business processes are all already documented for us. We actually have tools that would allow us to manipulate the standard content to be able to change it to say, you know what, that process works 95% for us, but if we just change this one thing, we can absolutely do that as well. But making sure that that documentation is done and putting test scripts together for pilots. I would tell you that, so far, knock on wood, all of our implementations have been successful. If the ones that actually excel, if you will, if you were to go back and say, holy cow, that was a fantastic ERP implementation, they did a very good job of documenting and creating their test scripts for their conference room pilots or simulation labs, whatever you want to call them. So yeah. I would say to protect yourself there, make darn sure that you're doing great documentation and testing your processes.
I've seen that with the client I'm going through the implementation with now is the conference room pilot. The first one, we had a decent, script to follow to test and then learn so much from that to then help them get to an even deeper level of what does all of the process look like. And then what are those really clear handoffs? So as they're testing in a big room, that next department knows, oh yeah, it's my turn. I need to go here because now the data has been populated to be able to see the full swing of, hey, an order came in, it got shipped out, and now accounting is going to go invoice for it.
Yep. Yeah. You got it.
So yeah, those are really, really helpful. And I kind of learned that early on with one of the first implementations I went through because it was through the vendor directly. It wasn't with a partner because the client chose not to do things that way. They had already, kind of purchased and gone things that way. And so it was a very different experience when working with the vendor directly versus a partner like yourself of getting feedback because your team has done a great job with my client, even of saying, hey, here's some changes you may want to tweak, also whatever feedback I can give, but your team knows from even a different level of how that goes into the workflow and the things that they have to change and test in the back end.
Yeah, sure.
It's cool. What trends are you starting to see that are kind of changing the way that ERP is working these days. I've read a lot of different articles out there, heard a lot of different people just speaking to the ever-changing way that technology is going.
Yeah, it's that emerging technologies, AI, the Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things, and I think one that's being overlooked right now is actually additive manufacturing. So 3D printing. I think you're seeing that become a larger part of people's manufacturing process. So 3D printing, keep your eye on that one. But AI in particular, I mean, it's already enhancing day-to-day tasks for everybody, right? So AI-driven suggestions for cross-selling opportunities, that works for any customer, that has a B2C and in some cases even B2B. It's just like the Amazon, people who bought this also bought this, type of thing, trying to say, hey, buy this stuff. So empowering customer service folks, think about everything that's happening through the augmented intelligence as well as enterprise automation type things like robotic process automation was talking about that. So those things, I think the advanced and emerging technologies is probably the trend that you're going to see most in the next couple of years. So jump on board. The machine learning stuff that's in there, I think you're going to see a lot of AI content that's going to be enhancing customer experience in general, really. So I think not just in providing some value for things like like I mentioned already, but also just having a much better experience with the application. With Gen AI right in it. How many gears do I have in inventory in Ypsilanti, Michigan? That's a place. I think that's a real place. And it's just going to tell you. So you can just interact with your ERP system, including Cloud Suite Industrial, just like we're interacting right now.
Yeah. How many times do you see it, Rob, where you go in and you start the sales process, and usually the first question is out of the client's mouth is, oh, I need AI and I want to be able to do all of these things, but our data is not great, but I still want to do all of these things.
Sometimes we just laugh when you see that, but it's starting to come up more often. We had an opportunity that we ran where someone was looking at another vendor, another ERP system, and I guess that vendor was pitching AI very heavily. But what we found was the AI that they're pitching is more consumer based, where Infor's approach was more of, look, we're doing AI. I don't think Infor is not involved. We 100% are, but we're making it more specific to manufacturing. Industry specific AI. Infor's not really interested in consumer AI. They're going to make their ERP software even better than it is by making it industry specific AI and helping companies that way.
Yeah. And that's important too, because it's kind of a one size fits all doesn't always work for AI. And I think we're starting to see that as it gets further developed and how it's going to be utilized.
Yeah, very recently we had the opportunity to talk to some of the technology leaders at Infor privately in a one-on-one, and it was really eye-opening, even for us as channel partners, to get an understanding of how deep Infor has explored, dived into. How do you say that? Dived into? I don't know, that doesn't sound right, but how deep they've actually gotten into it. We're talking with one of the leaders about agentic AI and how Infor is putting that as part of the platform and the ability to build agents right inside of the Cloud Suite. So I can't wait to see some of this stuff come out. It's actually it's April, so yeah, some of it's coming. It's dropping here this month. So awesome. Very excited about that.
Yeah, that is cool. A couple things, just some questions that popped up around implementation. If we could kind of go back to that, is what kind of support do you offer after go live? And this is coming from Meg.
Well, since you're a net new guy, Rob, I guess I'll take that one. Yeah. So.
Sure.
So after the implementation, that's one of the things that makes us a little bit different at SolutionsX is the relationship that you're going to get with your implementation team from our side. So as Rob indicated earlier, you're going to have a solution consultant that you did through the pre-sales process, you still have his information. You can talk to him or her afterwards, but primarily your lead application consultant is going to be your go-to person, and that can be forever after. You have their cell phone number, you have their email address. We don't cut ties and say, okay, that's an implementation team. Now we have a post go live support team. You will interact with people more. You're going to get with the customer success management team, and anytime you have a question, about licenses or anything like that, how does this work, that kind of thing, you're going to be able to get a hold of your CSM, no problem, and they can drive down or track down the people that you need to talk to. But you don't ever lose the cell phone number or the email address for your lead application consultant. So most of the time, people who are concerned about it, when they first go to make a decision to do an ERP, they're like, oh, but man, it's going to be a new system. What's going to happen after? I'm going to need a lot of help after. And then you go through the implementation with your SolutionsX team, and you find out that you're very, very self-sustainable after that. You don't need us nearly as much as you think. But if you are in a case where you need some continued support, even if it's staff augmentation or something like that, you'll just work with your project manager to set up a program to make that happen. So you're not going to get left in the dirt, if you will. So
Yes.
we're there with you. You have to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice too that you have various support packages that manage that too. Of, hey, I still need somebody to help me with everything, versus the client that's, hey, we're getting the hang of this. We don't need as much as we thought we did.
Sure. Yeah, most of our implementations, as soon as you go live, most of our implementations are just kind of like a pay by the drink. If I've got something I want to do later, come on. People will ask us for support contracts, and prepaid buckets of hours and things like that. And you find out that you really didn't need them. You did such a fantastic job at your implementation that you don't need our help nearly as much as you might think you're going to. Mm-hmm. And we're very happy about that. That's awesome.
That's the goal. Yeah. Always. I got one more from Mech, wanting to know, how do you handle delays or scope changes that are mid-project? So I'm assuming, Mech, you're referring to an implementation of what delays could pop into that, or if some scope changes, hey, they've done some more research, we need some other add-ins or additional users, etc.
Yeah, so the additional users part, that stuff's easy because it's really not too much of a scope change. It's really more a scaling size. We're going to perform. We do as far as training goes, we do a train the trainer type of approach. So if there's 2 other people in the room or there's 10 other people in the room, not a huge deal for us, right? But the other things where we actually are changing scope, where we might say something like, the finance team initially said that our accountants do our depreciation of our fixed assets, but you guys have an asset module, and now the accounting team wants to bring fixed assets into the project. So we would, in that instance, we would do an evaluation to see what the impact of to the project would be, both fiscally and, in a timeline. As we all know, the project management pyramid, right? You can't change just one. The others are going to change as well. So we do that evaluation, and we have what we've set up at the beginning called a steering committee. So there has to be a group of folks that have governance over the project on both sides of the table. And we would present that change to that steering committee and say, what do you want to do? It's going to make a change in the duration of the project, or it's going to cost more, or it's going to do this. And then we have options for that too. So we could also say, okay, you actually have a solution for it today. Your project is already approaching, this milestone, and we're not ahead of schedule. Right. So adding today is going to cause it to change. Since you have a solution today, we might suggest to do that in a phase 1B. Let's move that change out to a post go live type of situation. But when that can't happen, we just have to be open and honest and communicate with each other to make sure that we all understand what the impact of the project is going to be. And we make sure that if it does add risk to the project, that we've put some mitigation strategies in place to make sure that it doesn't actually come to a risky proposition. So
no, it totally makes sense. And I've seen that even with my own client that we're working with now, that there's been a couple of changes of scope to it because they realized, hey, maybe the out of the box wasn't complex enough to handle the needs as it's been tested, and hey, we need to add something else in. I think there's different things that all of the solution architects that you guys have on your team have really provided value in that of saying, hey, CAD-Link was one of them. Hey, if we utilize a portion of this, it'll save you time over on this side with your engineering department, testing it and being like, yep, that is the right route to go. So different things like that.
Yeah, CAD Talk often comes up and fixes a lot of those problems.
It does. Yeah, I always say CAD-Link. It's terrible. It's CAD Talk. CAD Talk. And then I know just there was one other question in here, and you guys are specifically just a CSI reseller, but they were asking a question around, Infor has, essentially 3 different versions. You have CSI, you have LN, and you have M3. And I don't know if you can speak at a very high level of just what industries you see those more. And I know LN is more of a tier 1 that you start to see it versus M3.
Yeah, certainly. You want to do that, Rob? Or?
Sure. I'll take the first stab at it. Sure. So the way we talk about it internally, or even with Infor, any company that's north of $500 million a year in revenue, they should be looking at maybe an LN or M3. Not that CSI can't handle it. It can. But typically, those companies are going to be more global. There's going to be a lot more moving parts in those companies. And what we say is LN M3 is the big brother to Cloud Suite Industrial. So that would be my most simple answer without knowing exactly what companies you're talking about or who's shopping for an ERP. But yeah, LN I know is big for very large aerospace and defense companies. LN would be for someone to look at the Boeings of the world, stuff like that.
Yeah, as you indicated, Christy, they're tier 1 packages, right? So LN and M3 are tier 1 packages, and so with that comes some of the same complexities that you get in some of the other tier 1 packages that we talked about earlier with the 3-letter acronyms. That's why these ones are only 2 letters, so they're not ever confused with them. But some of those complexities do come into play. We're definitely not talking about a 6 to 9 month implementation on either of those packages. We're talking about 7-figure plus implementations, and they are complex and large packages. LN's the one we're most familiar with. It's the Cloud Suite Industrial Enterprise Cloud Suite. So just a bigger brother, I guess, if you will, to Cloud Suite Industrial. So I think their team would get mad at me for saying that, and some of the CSI team would get mad at me for saying it too. But as Rob indicated, because Cloud Suite Industrial is so flexible and scalable, we do so well at the 500 million mark that we could compete for the same for the same opportunities in that space. But it is a much larger, much more complex, less pre-configured implementation than a Cloud Suite Industrial implementation, for sure.
Awesome. Cool. I guess my last question for you is from both of you. What advice do you have to give to companies that are in that small, medium-sized space as they're looking for new software and looking for just the right fit for them over the next 10 plus years? Because I always tell my clients is we don't want to do this again in 2 to 3 years. We want to stay with it at least 7 or 8 years before going through that process again.
Get it, Rob. Go ahead. Tell her.
So there's always been a long-standing notion that manufacturers should replace their ERP system, once a decade. Our advice would be don't fall into that cycle. Instead, choose a scalable solution from the jump and a partner that's committed to a long-term support and innovation. Implementations can be very costly, disruptive to the business, and choosing the right solution and the right partner from the jump makes all the difference. Like I think we mentioned earlier, we still work with our very first customer from 20 years ago. Do they call us every day? No. But if they have a question pertaining to CSI or maybe wanting to make the software do something more for them, they know who to call. I actually did see in the comments section that there was a question. I believe Mick asked it. How do you measure success at the end of an implementation? And for us here at SolutionsX, we don't judge success by saying, "Hey, you're live. Congratulations. You're successful.
You
That's
shipped
not how
and you
we.
invoiced, right? Yeah.
That's right. All right. But we like to sit down with them post go live. Maybe it's 3-6 months after, and we ask them directly, are you successful? Was this a success? And not, I think 100% of the time so far, it's been yes. Because, and we also tell people it's you definitely don't want to do this twice. And you can buy the best ERP software in the world. If you don't think it's Infor, that's fine. You can buy the best one out there. If you don't pick the right partner, well, let me back up. If you don't pick the right company to partner with, to implement that software and be with you long term, I guarantee you're going to either be buying another ERP software within that once a decade, or you're going to go through implementation partners like crazy. I've heard the horror stories of some of our competition where they're years past the expected timeline for the implementation, and they're 3x the budget that they gave them. So it's very, very important. We preach that from the jump about this. This is not a vendor selling a company a product. This is a partnership. I think Christy, you were in the room when I said it to a client we worked with. If you're not looking for a partnership, tell us now, we'll leave.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure you're successful. It's our job to make sure that you are successful. So, and we take it very seriously.
And just so you know, just so it's not a sales guy, spewing sales guy stuff, we absolutely will fire a prospect. We will absolutely say, you know what, we're just not a great fit. If you want to treat us like a vendor, you want to treat us like somebody that you send purchase orders to, and you're going to negotiate with us like you're buying screws, then you're probably not a company that we want to work with. And so we're fortunate enough to be able to say good luck to you. We really look to partner for our customer success in a long-term way. And it's going to sound cocky, and I don't mean it to, but we're good at what we do. And what we do is we implement Cloud Suite Industrial, and we make people successful with that package. And so we love to take the lead in that to make sure that we can ensure that customer success. And if we feel out of the jump, as Rob said, that we're not going to be that partnership type of relationship, we probably won't engage. Yep. But I want to clear something up for Mick if he's still here, because I love that question. How do we define success? We're going to ask you guys that question as prospects or customers at the beginning of the implementation. What does the case study look like at the end of this implementation, right? What's the problem you were trying to solve, and did we solve the problem? That would be success for us. Are you happy? And did we solve the problem that you were trying to solve? The answer to those, if those are both yes, then that's success for us.
No, that's good. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And as you probably saw, and we've had different conversations along the way, is when I kind of did the March Madness, everybody really was, loving Infor and what you guys had to offer. And so I appreciate you being able to take the time and explain more about the solution so that people can be even more informed about it. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Christy. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. As again, I'm on every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we will have more tech and finance stuff coming for you next week. Thanks so much.